The night was supposed to be quiet. The moon hung heavy above the Afghan desert, casting long shadows across the compound where a team of United States Navy SEALs had taken position. The silence was deceptive, that fragile kind of stillness that exists only before the storm. In the distance, the faint hum of enemy trucks broke through the night, followed by the harsh echo of gunfire that shattered the calm. Within seconds, chaos ignited. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Keller moved first. The world around him was fire and thunder, RPGs slicing through the air, the sand beneath his boots trembling with every explosion. He could taste the dust in his mouth, feel the heat singeing his skin. The mission had gone wrong, terribly wrong. Their extraction was delayed, and the enemy had surrounded them. 5 men, pinned inside a collapsing mud brick building, low on ammunition and cut off from communication. For most, that would have been the end. But not for Ryan. He wasn't built to retreat. He was built to protect. A decade in the SEALs had taught him that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was moving forward when every instinct screamed to run. As another rocket struck nearby, Keller's ears rang, his vision blurred, and yet he could still hear the muffled shouts of his brothers inside. The radio crackled, broken by static, but he caught enough to know what was happening. The wall had collapsed, trapping 2 men. Smoke was filling the room. They had minutes, maybe less. He didn't wait for orders. There was no time. Slinging his rifle across his chest, Keller sprinted toward the blaze. The heat was unbearable, the air thick with ash and burning debris. He could feel the fire biting into his exposed skin, but he didn't stop. The flames roared like a living thing, daring him to come closer. And he did. He dove straight into it, through the inferno that separated him from his brothers. Inside, the world was orange and black. The smoke clawed at his lungs, the floor burned through his gloves as he crawled forward. He could barely see, just the faint outlines of bodies and the distant sound of coughing. One of them was moving. Keller dragged him toward the door, muscles screaming with effort. Every breath was pain, every heartbeat a hammer. He didn't think about his own safety. He only thought about them. The men he'd trained with, bled with, trusted with his life. Outside, gunfire still ripped through the night. The team's sniper shouted over the radio, calling in air support, but Keller was deaf to everything except the fire's roar. He went back in once, twice, 3 times. Each time the flames grew wilder, the structure weaker. The last trip, the building groaned, a death rattle before collapse. He found the last man pinned under a beam, unconscious, his leg twisted and broken. Keller's strength was fading, his hands blistered and raw, but he refused to stop. He heaved, lifted, pulled, every fiber of his being screaming in defiance of the impossible. When he finally dragged the last man free, the building behind them gave way. The explosion sent a shockwave through the ground, knocking Keller off his feet. The sky lit up as fire consumed the ruins. For a moment he thought it was over. But then, he looked down at the men beside him. They were alive, burned, bleeding, but breathing. And in that moment, with smoke swirling and bullets still flying in the distance, Ryan Keller realized he had done what he'd sworn he would always do, bring his brothers home. Medics arrived hours later after the fight had long ended. They found Keller lying beside the men he'd saved, half-conscious, barely breathing, his uniform scorched and torn. His first words when they reached him weren't about himself. They were a hoarse whisper asking, "Are they all safe?" When they told him yes, tears mixed with the soot on his face. He smiled, a small, broken smile that carried more pride than any medal ever could. Back at base, doctors said it was a miracle he survived. 3rd-degree burns, smoke inhalation, and shrapnel wounds covered most of his body. But Keller's spirit was unbreakable. As he lay in the hospital bed, he kept asking about his team. Every man he'd pulled from that inferno came to visit, each of them alive because of him. They tried to thank him, but he would shake his head. "We don't leave anyone behind," he would say quietly. "That's the job." Months later, when he stood on the stage to receive the Navy Cross, he didn't feel like a hero. The medal was heavy in his hand, but it wasn't for him. It was for the ones who didn't make it home on other nights, for the brothers still out there facing the fire. He looked out into the crowd, faces of soldiers, families, strangers, and then spoke softly. "Courage," he said, "isn't running into danger without fear. It's doing it because you're afraid, but you know someone else won't make it out if you don't." The room went silent. No applause, just tears. because they all knew what that meant. Years later, people would tell the story of Chief Keller, the Navy SEAL who dove into fire alone, refusing to let his brothers die. But the truth was simpler. He never thought about being remembered. He just did what he believed was right, and that's what made him unforgettable. Even after his service, the scars never fully healed. Some nights he'd wake up gasping, the phantom heat of that fire still burning on his skin, but he found peace knowing that his brothers were alive, living their lives, holding their children because of what happened that night. To him, that was worth every scar, every nightmare, every moment of pain. In his small hometown, there's a plaque now, not for the mission, not for the medal, but for the man who embodied the truest form of brotherhood. It reads simply, "He walked through fire so others could live." If this story touched your heart, if Ryan Keller's courage reminded you that true heroes don't always wear capes, they wear scars, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who believes in sacrifice, loyalty, and the power of never giving up. Special request to comment. Tell us in the comments, what does true bravery mean to you? Your words might inspire someone who needs strength today.